Welcome to New York's number two sports show. The Rangers pick up a really, really big win, winning 4-3 against the Columbus Blue Jackets in their last game before the Four Nations break. And Will Cuylle um, may have saved the Rangers season. And I admit that's a bit of a strong statement. I mean, there is still a third of the season to go, in essence, 27 games left. But Will Cuylle gets the tying goal early in the third period, then late in the third gets the winning goal, which is really important considering that Columbus is one of the biggest Ranger competitors. So that's kind of a 4-point swing. I mean, really, just the shift before that, Columbus almost scored a goal. So this really day couldn't have gone any better for the Rangers, where they beat Columbus in regulation, and then you get all losses in regulation by Detroit, Boston, Ottawa, the Islanders, and to a much lesser extent, Montreal and Pittsburgh. Like just across the board, it was literally the perfect day standings wise for the Rangers. And that all said, there's still a sting that comes with the loss to the Penguins the night before. If they had just won that game, and who knows what that would have meant. Like if they won that game, maybe they don't win against Columbus. That's possible. But they would have been 1 point out. As it stands, the Rangers are 3 points out of a playoff spot and really right in the mix. They are 3 points back of Detroit, same games played, and they are 4 points back of Ottawa with a game in hand. And very, very close with Columbus, Boston, the Islanders specifically. It feels as if Montreal's falling a bit here. But again, I mean, it's only a 3 point difference, I think, same game. So it's not like it's a crazy, crazy difference, but Rangers are kind of slowly moving up the standings. Uh, they're not playing the best hockey, but this game was very good, and especially the third period. This has got to be a blueprint, and we've seen it. The Rangers are capable of this thing. I mean, that's what makes it frustrating is that they have it within them to really be a team that gets in. And when you think about it too, the reason why the Rangers have a legitimate chance is because the teams around them, they're really not that great. And the Rangers deserve to be where they are, but all it takes is a pretty good stretch. Um, and the Rangers can certainly find their way in the playoffs. A lot of work to be done, but this is really important. For them to get 2 points in Columbus to get zero, I can't say enough how big that is. And it's just nice as a fan, um, with the Rangers not having another game for 2 weeks. You can leave this part of the season going to the break feeling, you know, not so bad. Um, and look, I still think it's in the Rangers' best interest to sell certain players. I think there's a way that they can maybe be strategic and stay competitive, sell, maybe even buy a little bit too, and do what you have to do to help yourselves in the future and now. There will be 7 games until the deadline, out of the break. Um, and so we'll see. Those 7 games could certainly go a long way in seeing what happens. I wouldn't expect, even if the Rangers play really well, I wouldn't expect Chris Drury to be in total buy mode. I just don't think he has the assets um, to pull it off. He would probably have to trade a prospect, right? Because the Rangers, they don't really have that much draft capital at this point. I mean, their second round picks are all gone. I think the next one that they have is in 2028. They just traded their first round pick. So yeah, you could trade a mid round pick, sure, but um, I'm not sure if that's the way to go. So that's going to be very interesting. Obviously, is what Chris Drury and the Brain Trust decide to do. But this game, a lot of intrigue. I'll first say that Igor Shesterkin was out, and he's actually out for 1 to 2 weeks. So the timing is pretty good. Where chances are he should be good to go in that 1 to 2 week timeline. Maybe at most he's missing the Buffalo and or Pittsburgh game. It's a back-to-back on the road coming out of the break. Other than that, if this timeline's correct, he should be all right. So he ends up getting hurt towards the end of the first period against Pittsburgh. I think it was Philip Tomasino that maybe got his stick in like the blocker of Shesterkin. I think it was his right hand area, right wrist, that I think there was a little bit of discomfort there. But not overly concerned. I wonder if he was going to start this game against Columbus. There was kind of reports out there that Quick was going to get the start anyway. It doesn't matter at this point. Rangers got the win, and we'll never know. That was just my hunch, but who knows? And so the Rangers called up Dylan Garand, who's been really good in the AHL. And it'd be nice to see him get a look at some point, honestly. It has not happened yet. At most, he's been a backup. Has not appeared. I don't believe he's appeared in any NHL game. He certainly hasn't started. I don't think there's been any relief appearances for him. But he was the one that was the backup. He will presumably be sent back down. So Jonathan Quick gets the start. Um, and then as far as lineup changes, there were a couple. Some more surprising than others, I guess. But Urho Vaakanainen, back from illness, was in for Zach Jones. And Zach Jones, I thought he was really good against Boston, not as good against Pittsburgh. I'm not surprised that this happened. Look, Jones's path to the lineup is by injury. And, the more I think about it, if they do feel comfortable with him as the seventh, in other words, if no one in the AHL, like an Eric Brandstrom, who just got acquired in the JT Miller trade, or even Chad Ruedel, I know he's on the right side, but if none of the defensemen um, give the Rangers confidence. They could acquire another depth defenseman. But Zach Jones, unfortunately for him, it might be a situation because last year he never found his way into any of the playoff games. And I believe, if memory serves me correct, I think he was ahead of Chad Ruedel in the pecking order. So, like, if from left or right side, he was playing that well. And right now he's the clear seventh defenseman. So they feel comfortable enough with him being the first guy in. But if everyone's healthy, he's not going in there. So again, just this was reaffirmed, and we knew that. And so Vaakanainen was in there. Forwards, Johnny Brodzinski was the healthy scratch. So it's funny, Brodzinski kind of goes from being a healthy scratch quite often to when he's in there having a pretty big role. He was the third line center. Now, he wasn't really getting like normal third line center minutes, right? Felt like it was more in the 10 to 12 minute range at most. With a little bit of second power play unit time and, providing some contributions there. But Brodzinski was the healthy scratch. Arthur Kaliev was in, and he actually scored. He actually looked really good. He scored a goal. And we'll get into that once we discuss the game. But Kaliev was in the lineup for the Rangers. And these are the lines. Really talk about a lot of changes. And I'll give my quick thoughts, right? I'm trying to think, should I go back to the defenseman? Nah, we'll discuss that more organically as we kind of go through the game. But for the forwards, the first line was JT Miller centering Artemi Panarin and Jimmy Vesey. So Jimmy Vesey ends up playing like over 17 minutes in the game. There were opportunities for him, but Vesey at this point in his career, like in the past, like, okay, well, you can kind of shift him up there and be okay with it. And yeah, if you need it in a pinch in a game or two, fine. But I do not like Jimmy Vesey being with them. He didn't play in almost 10 straight games. You go from that to playing him with Panarin and Miller. That wasn't great. That's my thought on that. As a Jimmy Vesey, if he's going to be in there, it should really be strictly a fourth line role. It certainly shouldn't be playing with two of the top players in the team. Another thought too is Panarin and Miller. Is their play styles going to work with each other? I don't know. And I'm willing, you're still at a point where I think you're in kind of wait and see, test things out mode. And so I'm fine with that. But I don't know. Early returns are mixed. Like the first couple games, it was going well. And obviously Zibanejad was on the line too, which I think did help for sure. So that's the thing. VC should not be with them, but also I don't even know if they should be with each other. They're going to have to determine that. Then we'll go with the next line being Trocheck centering Cuylle and Lafreniere. So Trocheck and Lafreniere through it all seem to be kind of attached to the hip in terms of like through all the line changes. For the most part, they seem to be staying together, which is something to note. Obviously, I kind of teased it before that Will Cuylle scores 2 goals. The great thing about this is that I've been saying, and I've been frustrated with Cuylle as well, right? I think I kind of discussed it in the Penguin episode where it's a combination of, hey, he's been dealt a bad hand, but also he hasn't been great. And he was due to produce. Cuylle kind of did hit a bit of a rough patch. And I do think that this time off will serve him well. I think he was, playing more minutes than he was accustomed to. And I think, certain players, I don't necessarily think the break is good for. For him, I do, despite the fact he scored these 2 goals. But nice to see him playing in a true top 6 role and not playing with Brodzinski and Kreider. that isn't going to do him any good. His look, he'll do the best he can, but you got to have him play with a little bit of talent, a little bit of skill, and he can use his physicality, north south style to work. And so that was good. They really need to don't just shove Cooley with crap. And so happy about the way that worked out, at least in this game. Then you have Zibanejad back with Kreider and Arthur Kaliev, which is a line that I'm trying to think if we had seen that exact combination. You know what? It wasn't. I guess it was Hedel when he was still there. I think it was Kreider, Hedel, and Kaliev. So Kreider and Kaliev have been together, not Zibanejad. But I really like what I saw from Arthur Kaliev. Look, I understand that he's going to be the type of player that I think he's going to be a healthy scratch a decent amount. Like, that's just my prediction. However, look, like, he deserves to be in there and really getting a chance to play with good players. You know what? For me, what they maybe should have done for if you want to do a one-for-one switch, and there's a lot of moving parts here, but I already brought up Jimmy Vesey. Maybe you could have gone, and it worked with Kaliev, with Zibanejad and Kreider to an extent, but maybe go with Kaliev with Panarin and Miller, and have Vesey with Zibanejad and Kreider. Just a thought, but I think that Kaliev deserves, if he's going to be in there, really play him um, you know, with as much skill as you can, and ideally as much playmaking ability as you can, which is why I think Panarin and Miller is a decent fit. Whereas Kreider and Zibanejad, to me, they profile more as, not all the time for sure, but they are a little more shoot first than Panarin and Miller. Um, but yeah, Kaliev's an interesting thing here because I feel like he's been pretty good for a waiver claim. There's still some upside with him. So that was good. Kreider and Zibanejad, it's funny, like when they are in, because Zibanejad gets a goal and an assist in this game. When they're in 4-on-4 situations, they 4-on-4 or on the penalty kill, just them two, and there's no other forward. The chemistry is good. It's when it's 5-on-5 and things like that it's not as good. But again, I'm open to the idea of going back to Zibanejad Kreider more for the fact that I think Mika as one of your three centers, it just gives you a lot of um, potential matchup advantages. I think so. Mika, I think ever since JT Miller was acquired, and even a little bit before that, honestly, really in 2025, Zibanejad's been a lot better, really noticeably. And there's always going to be a little bit of mistakes. And honestly, like the first goal that Columbus scored, he was kind of a part of just a little bit, but you can tell he's so much more engaged. There's more confidence. Like it really, truly is looking better. And I do like what I'm seeing from Zibanejad in terms of the work ethic. And like, it's just, it's more the player that we're accustomed to. So he's on an upward trend. Fourth line, here's the interesting thing here. Riley Smith gets moved to fourth line. He only played like 10 minutes. So Riley Smith, who was a healthy scratch once before this season, could be headed there again, possibly. So he went from really being in a pretty nice position, being in that top six. We know that he gets, regular penalty killing time, but Riley Smith, the fact of the matter is he has not been great lately. And the coaching staff sees that, and they had him with Carrick and Rempe. And so, yeah, again, very interesting where it's like VC moves up, Riley Smith moves down, Cooley moves up, Kaliev's in, Brodzinski's out. Where it all lands when they come back from the break, I don't know. You're probably going to see something somewhat similar to this, but maybe not exact, because there was success with these combinations. But let's get into the game. The goalie matchup again, Jonathan Quick for the Rangers, who I didn't think he made some really big saves. Some of it was kind of self-induced mistakes that kind of he recovered on his own. Quick is a very, I don't know the best way to put this. I'd say herky-jerky. Like he is kind of all over the place. And sometimes that leads to amazing acrobatic saves, but it can also lead to some goals against that maybe shouldn't be. So my evaluation of Quick, hey, he gets the win. It's win 401. He had me nervous. I'll say that. But I thought it was going to go worse than it did. For him to just allow the 3 was fine, but we'll talk about it in more detail. Elvis Merzlikins was the starting goalie for Columbus, a Columbus team that has been struggling a little bit lately. They have been, and there's been a lot of injuries as well. Zach Werenski was in. He had been out just for a little bit. Marchenko is out. Sean Monahan is out. I think I'm forgetting other people as well. Like, you look at the names on this team, and they are a young team, and I think one that's going to be really like one of the best teams in the Metropolitan Division, I think, in years to come. I truly, genuinely believe that. But in looking at this roster, it's a bit unrecognizable. And And that could just be me not really being totally aware of this roster, but it's not great on paper currently. I'll say that. Despite the fact that like there really are some very impressive young players that are going to help this team. So, um, first period for the Rangers, kind of in some ways a tale of two halves, where I thought the Rangers really came out strong, but then the first period was probably the Rangers' worst. Even though like they get off to a really good start right away, and I should just say it right out of straight up the top is that there were no power plays in this game. The only penalties taking place were at 6:09 in the second period, matching minors to Trocheck and Severson. That was it. So this was a strictly even strength game. And at 156, Arthur Kaliev scores his third goal of the season from Lindgren and Zibanejad, a wraparound goal. So um, Zibanejad finds Lindgren, who sees Kaliev going down the left wing with a bit of speed, takes around the net and wraps it in past Lincoln. So a good way to get started. And for Kaliev, who had been out of the lineup for what? I mean, he had probably missed, give or take, the last 5 or so games. And so for him to come in there, that's the good thing. And it shows like, being well conditioned to just step right in the lineup and contribute. I mean, Kaliev played over 13 minutes, which is probably towards the top of minutes played for him since he's been a Ranger. So a good sign for him, makes it 1-0. And the Rangers had a lot of other opportunities. There was a Riley Smith breakaway that was unsuccessful. Jimmy Vesey, was in some prime opportunities but couldn't score. There were some other things too. But at 14:31, Kent Johnson scores his 17th goal of the season from Werenski and Fantilli. And this was one, it was the Zibanejad line with Borgen and Miller as the D pair, and kind of a misconnection. Not a misconnection, but just Borgen and Zibanejad were unable to maintain the puck. Zibanejad loses it. Kaliev goes for a stick check, which wasn't great. Obviously you're looking for him to maybe more play the body. And eventually it was a nice pass by Werenski to a wide open Kent Johnson on the right side. Quick moves over, quick enough, no pun intended. But, in doing so, I almost feel like if he was more in stride, he would have been in a better position. He was almost sitting there for too long, waiting, and Kent Johnson just risks it past him. Um, Not sure what Quick could have done differently, but I feel like, again, it's kind of his more east to west style of play, not still, kind of ends up hurting him here. And it's Ken Johnson, 17th goal season from Werenski and Fantilli at 14:31, ties it up at 1. And then the Rangers give up another goal. That's been a problem lately, where they're not just giving up 1, but it's 2. This has been a theme lately. And I didn't even get into themes yet. We'll get into that. That's the exciting thing, is some fun trends in a positive way. This has not been good though, where Columbus scores again, and it is less than a minute after. At 15:29, Justin Danforth scores his 5th goal of the season from Jack Johnson. Yes, the Jack Johnson that was on the Rangers like 4 or so seasons ago. He's still playing. And Zach Aston Reese. So 2-1 Blue Jackets. And this was one where not a great sequence by Braden Schneider, where he's unable to corral the puck in the neutral zone, kind of leads to a Columbus possession. And nothing that Jonathan Quick could do on this one. It's Jack Johnson, kind of a shot pass in front, and Danforth easily tips it in. But again here, Alexis Lafreniere, not good with the back check. It's just very apparent. And did this lead directly to the goal? No, I'm not going to say that it did, but it's a bad look for someone that we've seen that a lot with lately. It's like he is someone where hopefully the break does him some good, because it's just been a very disappointing season for Lafreniere after just an absolute explosion for him at the end of last year and into the playoffs, and even the beginning of this season was good. So I'm really hoping that you can get what you saw last year at the tail end from Lafreniere in these last 27 games. I want to see better work ethic. It's really, really been disturbing. And he's not the only one. Don't get me wrong. He's not the only one, but it's been kind of very noticeable lately. He needs to pick that up. Has to. So it makes it 2-1 Columbus, and they would lead by that score going into the second period. There was a bad turnover by JT Miller towards the end of the first period that almost ended up in the back of the Ranger net, but didn't. Not a great night. Not a bad night, but JT Miller and Artemi Panarin, not ideal. And with Panarin, it's kind of like, who faces former Columbus team, he needs space and just, look, he's never had the greatest speed. He's deceptive I guess I'd call him maybe deceptively quick, but he's certainly not a speedster and needs some room to operate. And I want Miller Panarin to work as a duo. I don't know that it will. And I just feel like, I don't know, Panarin has not looked great lately. So at this point, it's a 2-1 game for Columbus going to the second period. And I thought the Rangers' second period was really solid. They got better and better as the game went on. And eventually you end up in a 4-on-4 situation where, like I had said earlier, Trocheck and Severson are called for unsportsmanlike conduct at 6:09. And it leads to a 4-on-4 where it's Zibanejad, Kreider, Lindgren, and Fox. And a really, really nice play by all of them. And it eventually leads to a situation where Adam Fox is able to find Chris Kreider, who passes it to Mika Zibanejad. He throws it in the direction of Kreider and Fox, but Kreider does a nice little play where he just, it was kind of very similar to I think it was Rust in the Ranger Penguin game on the Tomasino power play goal where Kreider knew what he was doing. It was an intentional, like, you didn't want to put too much on it, but just a little bit to get it right to Fox, who finds Zibanejad on the other side, and just a quick shot by Mika, and he scores to tie it up at 2. Really, really big goal. It's Chris Kreider's 4th assist of the season. Fox's 40th. And so at 6:38, it's tied up right there. And so Mika Zibanejad with a goal and an assist as well. And the Rangers really kept on pouring it on and had many, many chances. I really felt like they played the shot count ends up being 11-11, but I don't know. It felt like just the eye test. The Rangers had a good second, but it's Columbus that takes the lead back again. And it's James Van Riemsdyk with his 11th goal of the season from Severson and Sillinger at 17-17 of the second period. And the Rangers just had an opportunity. I think it was Fox to Cuylle that, doesn't convert. And so they go down the other way. Again, Lafreniere is the one that's going back on it and looking at it. Not going to really get into that again. But I think Ryan Lindgren's kind of a culprit here a little bit. Trocheck was back on defense, which isn't great. It was Lindgren and Trocheck with Fox up on the play. And it would be Severson finding just a wide open Van Riemsdyk because Lindgren lost him. And this, I think, out of the 3 goals, I think is the one that maybe I'm most frustrated with quick. I don't know why Van Riemsdyk ends up with like an open net. That despite, like, I know Lindgren fucked up there and it wasn't great defense overall, but it shouldn't have been that easy of a deflected goal. And honestly, Van Riemsdyk almost, like, it went off the post and in. Like, he almost just like missed it. So, like, I think quick, something went wrong there where he committed too much to Severson and didn't think the pass was coming. So that makes it 3-2 Columbus, which is disheartening considering the fact that the Rangers really, I thought, had played a very solid 40 minutes. Not far from perfect, but pretty good. So now we go to the third period, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. So now the Rangers, look, we know the Rangers won this game. The Rangers have now 3 of the last 4 games, in the last 3 wins, have been when they were trailing going into the third period. And all 3, by the way, they win in regulation. And for the longest time, I was saying, hey, the Rangers have not shown comeback ability. They still have not come back from down 2 goals this season, which isn't great. Hopefully they can buck that at some point. But it took until mid-January with a win at Utah to finally get one when trailing after 2, right? And now here, in the start of February, and mind you, the Rangers have been trailing the last 7 games when going to the third. Not even tied, trailed in the last 7 going to third period. Well, in 3 of those games, they were able to win them. And not just win them, but in regulation, which in 2 of the opponents was especially important against Boston and Columbus. The biggest one, whatever. They're in the Western Conference. But for them to find the way to beat Boston and Columbus when trailing and flipping the script, that's a 4-point swing in those games. And they do it again here. So they went from a team that really had one of the worst records in the league when trailing after 2 periods to now gotta be, I don't know if I want to say one of the best. That's probably not true. But hey, like 4 wins when trailing after 2 periods, that's not nothing. And like I said, as a side note, not that it's that important, depending on who the opponent is, but 4 in regulation. So not only are they tying it, but they're taking the lead. And so while the Pittsburgh game, they were unable to get that comeback, boom, next night they're back at it. So the late magic is there. And I think it's really something that is important. I think that has been something that the Rangers have been it's been an identity thing for them, and they're good years, the last few years. This is they do this where leads, it's not insurmountable. And Will Cooley, you could argue, kind of put the team on his back a little bit. Although this is interesting. I am now I'm literally seeing this for the first time. Urho Vaakanainen looks like he was credited for the goal. I see. So let me do just a quick bit of live research here to see if this is actually legitimate. It must be because I'm looking on NHL.com, which is usually correct. But it seems as if he might have been given credit for the goal here. Because I think it was taken off the board. So let me just check real quick. But I think the Cooley goal is no longer his. Yep, there it is. The goal was changed. So no 2 goals for Will Cooley. So everything that I said before, maybe take a little bit of that with a grain of salt. But really, honestly, it was a shot by Cooley. He actually drew a penalty. And the funny thing too is it's Urho Vaakanainen's first goal as a Ranger as well, one that no one even knew about. And I'm not sure if it was discussed in the I don't think that anyone really thought that that was even in consideration. But apparently he tipped it in. He did go in front. I knew that, but Lafreniere also provided a screen. So what happens is Merzlikins, 157 into the third period is the goal. Trocheck makes the stop along the boards when Merzlikins tries to rim it around. And it ends up going to Will Cooley, and he's kind of along the blue line. And there was a delayed penalty. The Rangers were going to get a power play, and Cooley takes a pretty innocent shot. And a nice job by Lafreniere and Vaakanainen to be in front and to cause a little bit of chaos in front of Merzlikins, and the puck had eyes and it goes in. So it's Vaakanainen's first goal as a Ranger from Cooley and Trocheck at 157 to tie it up at 3. And the Rangers kept going and going and going. Not to say that Columbus didn't have some really good chances as well. And I kind of specifically liked, even though I feel as if Borgen specifically, there's been a little bits of ups and downs in me watching it, but I think overall it's more positive than negative. But I really like their third period. I thought that, Adam Fox, I thought had a really good all around game. Like I think, and I've been asking that from him more, and I thought that Fox was really solid. But Miller Borgen, a lot of physicality. I'm noticing that K'Andre Miller has been a lot more physical lately. Maybe that's just the Will Borgen effect, possibly. But I thought that their third period was strong. And Columbus did have, I think they might have hit a crossbar. They had a chance to take the lead. They don't. The Rangers were really the ones that were dominating large stretches of the third. They outshot Columbus in the third period 17-4. Outshot Columbus 40-25 in the game. And it's a turnover that is created mainly by Vincent Trocheck. As Will Cooley, kind of gets it into the Columbus zone, and the Columbus defenseman is unable to get it to his teammate. Trocheck deflects it just barely, and just enough for Will Cooley to take a snapshot and score past Merzlikins. So it's Will Cooley's first goal of the game, not his second. 14th goal of the season from Trocheck. So give Vincent Trocheck 2 assists in the third. Give Will Cooley 2 points in the third. And just a huge, huge turn of events for everything I said before about the standings. And so it's 4-3. Columbus would pull the goalie. Rangers do a nice job. Columbus really didn't get that many great opportunities late. And that's a 4-3 Ranger win. And so, look, you have to acknowledge that Pittsburgh game was bad. There's no excuse for it. But you couldn't have asked for a better turnaround the next day in terms of what the Rangers did and the rest of the Eastern Conference wild card competition did. So now they will go into the break with 6 players going to the Four Nations tournament. Vaakanainen for Finland, Zibanejad for Sweden, JT Miller, Vincent Trocheck, Chris Kreider, and Adam Fox for Team USA. So it'll be interesting to track and see what happens there. I don't anticipate doing episodes on that. I suppose there's a chance maybe if the championship game is of interest and Rangers are involved, maybe I would consider it, but not part of the plan is now. But looking forward to seeing what happens. There is Trades are possible. There is no roster freeze, so there may be some trades that do go down during this break. We'll see, but Rangers can feel decent about themselves, and they are truly right in the thick of this playoff race. With about a third of the season to go, uh, they will come back to have a back-to-back at Buffalo and at Pittsburgh. And while on paper that looks appealing, Buffalo has been a lot more competitive lately, and we just saw the Rangers lose to the Penguins. So you can never be too sure. But again, a really nice comeback from the Rangers. They do it again. It is the third time in basically a week span that they trailed going into the third and found a way to get the win. And this time against the Columbus Blue Jackets, which was very important. It was Will Cuylle that got the game-winning goal with less than 2 minutes to go. And so the Rangers head into the Four Nations break victorious, beating the Columbus Blue Jackets by a score of 4-3.